James Bracey slams Reece Walsh on live TV as he calls him a one-hit wonder ***. Before we dive into this absolutely explosive confrontation, quick favour. If you're loving the content on Unpopular Aussie Opinions, smash that subscribe button. Over 92% of viewers watch without subscribing. It costs nothing, but means the world to us. Did you hit it? Legend. Thanks so much. Now back to the main event. James Bracey just went nuclear on Reece Walsh during a live television broadcast, and what he said has sent shockwaves through the entire rugby league community. Picture this. One of Australia's most respected sports journalists, sitting across from one of the NRL's brightest young stars, and instead of the usual softball questions and polite praise, Bracey drops an absolute bomb by calling Walsh a one-hit wonder on national television. The studio went silent. Walsh's face said it all. And within minutes, social media absolutely erupted with fans, players, and pundits all weighing in on whether Bracey crossed the line or simply said what everyone's been thinking. Stick around, because what happened next turned this from a controversial comment into a full-blown war of words that's got everyone choosing sides. And trust me, this is the kind of drama that rugby league thrives on. Now, for those who might not be completely familiar with the players in this story, let me set the scene properly. James Bracey is a veteran sports journalist who's been covering rugby league for years. The bloke's earned his stripes through decades of reporting, interviewing, and analysing the game. He's not some shock jock looking for attention. He's a respected member of the media who's built his reputation on honest, sometimes brutal assessments of players and teams. When Bracey speaks, people listen, because he's got the experience and the credibility to back up his opinions. He's seen countless players come and go, witnessed careers rise and fall, and he's developed a pretty good eye for separating genuine talent from flashes in the pan. On the other side, you've got Reece Walsh, the young superstar fullback who's been lighting up the NRL with his electrifying play. Walsh burst onto the scene with the Warriors, then made the move to the Broncos where he's become one of the most exciting players in the competition. The kid's got pace, he's got skill, he's got that X factor that gets fans out of their seats. He's represented Queensland in State of Origin, he's been talked about as a future Australian representative, and at just 22 years old, he's already achieved more than most players do in their entire careers. To casual observers, calling Reece Walsh a one-hit wonder seems absolutely ridiculous. The bloke's been consistently brilliant, hasn't he? But here's where James Bracey's criticism gets interesting, and why it sparked such heated debate. During the live television segment, Bracey didn't just throw out the one-hit wonder label and leave it at that. He broke down his reasoning, and whether you agree with him or not, there's actually some substance behind his controversial take. Bracey pointed out that Walsh's reputation is largely built on a handful of spectacular moments, highlight reel plays that get replayed endlessly on social media and sports shows. The question Bracey posed was simple but cutting. When you strip away those viral moments, those jaw-dropping tries and miracle plays, what are you actually left with? Is Reece Walsh consistently dominating games week in and week out? Or is he a player who produces moments of brilliance surrounded by stretches of average performances? The statistics Bracey brought up were particularly damaging. He highlighted games where Walsh had been relatively quiet, matches where his defensive frailties were exposed, and moments where his decision-making under pressure left a lot to be desired. Bracey wasn't just throwing out baseless accusations. He'd done his homework, and he presented his case like a lawyer building an argument. He compared Walsh's consistency rates to other elite fullbacks in the competition, players like James Tedesco and Dylan Edwards, who might not have Walsh's highlight reel but deliver solid, dependable performances week after week. And when you look at it through that lens, Bracey's argument starts to carry some weight. Maybe Walsh is more style than substance. Maybe the hype has exceeded the actual on-field production. Reece Walsh's reaction was immediate and visible. You could see the anger flash across his face as Bracey laid out his criticism. This wasn't some post-game interview where Walsh could gather his thoughts and give a measured response. This was live television, real-time confrontation, and Walsh had to respond on the spot. To his credit, he didn't completely lose his cool, but you could tell the one-hit wonder comment had struck a nerve. Walsh fired back, defending his record, pointing to his achievements at such a young age, and suggesting that Bracey's criticism was unfair and based more on trying to generate controversy than on actual analysis of his performances. The exchange became heated, with both men standing their ground, neither willing to back down, and the poor host desperately trying to regain control of what had turned from an interview into a full-blown argument. Social media went absolutely mental. Within minutes of the confrontation, clips were being shared across every platform imaginable. Twitter was trending with both Bracey and Walsh's names, with fans violently divided into camps. Team Bracey argued that he was absolutely right, that Walsh has been overhyped by a media desperate to crown a new superstar, and that his flaws have been consistently overlooked because his highlights are so spectacular. They pointed to defensive lapses, moments of poor positioning, and a tendency to go missing in big pressure situations. The criticism was brutal and detailed, with fans pulling up examples from recent games to support Bracey's assessment. Team Walsh, on the other hand, came out swinging in defence of their young star. They argued that calling a 22-year-old who's already represented his state and dominated at club level a one-hit wonder is absolutely ludicrous. They highlighted his try assists, his incredible support play, his ability to create something from nothing, and his importance to the Brisbane Broncos structure. Walsh's supporters accused Bracey of being a bitter old journalist who can't handle the new generation of players, someone who's stuck in the past and unable to appreciate modern rugby league talent. The insults flew thick and fast, with some fans going way over the line in their defence of Walsh. But here's what makes this controversy so fascinating. Both sides actually have valid points. Bracey's criticism isn't completely without merit. Walsh does have games where he's relatively quiet. He does have defensive vulnerabilities that better teams have learned to exploit. And there is an argument to be made that his reputation might be slightly inflated by social media's obsession with highlight plays. At the same time, dismissing everything Walsh has achieved as a one-hit wonder is obviously harsh. The kid's got genuine talent, he's performed on big stages, and he's still developing as a player. Most 22-year-olds aren't expected to be the finished product, so judging Walsh by the standards of established veterans might be unfair. The timing of Bracey's comments is also worth examining. The Broncos have been going through a bit of a rough patch, and Walsh's form has been inconsistent during this period. Is Bracey capitalising on a temporary dip in performance to push a narrative, or is he identifying a pattern that's been there all along but got covered up when the Broncos were winning? That's the question that has fans and analysts arguing in pubs and online forums across the country. Some believe Bracey's timing is opportunistic and unfair, kicking a young player when he's down. Others think the timing is perfect because it exposes the truth about Walsh that people were unwilling to see when everything was going well. The reaction from current and former players has been mixed and incredibly interesting. Some former players have come out in support of Bracey, admitting that they've had similar thoughts about Walsh but were hesitant to say it publicly because of the backlash they'd receive. These players appreciate honest analysis and believe the media does young players a disservice by overhyping them before they've truly proven themselves. On the flip side, other players have rallied around Walsh, calling Bracey's comments disrespectful and unnecessary. They argue that public criticism like this can damage a young player's confidence, and that there are better ways to provide constructive feedback than calling someone a one-hit wonder on live television. The Broncos organization now finds itself in an awkward position. Do they come out in defense of their star player and risk escalating the controversy? Do they stay silent and let Walsh handle it himself? Or do they use this as an opportunity to have honest conversations with Walsh about areas of his game that need improvement? How the club handles this situation will say a lot about their professionalism and their commitment to player development. Walsh needs support right now, but he also needs people around him who'll be honest about his weaknesses and help him address them. What's particularly interesting is how this controversy highlights the broader issue of player development and media expectations in modern rugby league. Young players are thrust into the spotlight earlier than ever before, with social media amplifying their every move. One spectacular game can turn you into an overnight sensation, but that same spotlight means your failures are magnified just as much. Is it fair to expect 22-year-olds to perform at elite levels consistently when they're still learning the game? Or should we hold all NRL players to the same standards regardless of age? These are difficult questions without easy answers. The one-hit wonder label is particularly damaging because it's so difficult to shake once it's attached to you. If Walsh goes out and has a quiet game in his next match, people will say Bracey was right. If he has a spectacular performance, people will say it's just another flash in the pan, another highlight moment that doesn't represent consistent quality. Walsh is now in a position where he needs to prove himself all over again, and that's a lot of pressure to put on a young player who's already achieved so much. The mental toll of this kind of public criticism can be significant, and how Walsh handles it will reveal a lot about his character and resilience. Looking at the bigger picture, this confrontation between Bracey and Walsh represents a clash between traditional media and the new generation of players who've grown up with social media and instant fame. Bracey represents the old-school approach, judging players on consistency, fundamentals, and week-to-week performance. Walsh represents the modern player whose value is partly measured in viral moments, social media engagement, and ability to generate excitement. These different perspectives on what makes a player valuable were bound to clash eventually, and we are seeing that play out in real time. So where does this leave us? James Bracey has drawn a line in the sand with his controversial assessment of Reece Walsh. The rugby league community is violently divided on whether he's a brave truth-teller or a bitter critic taking cheap shots at a young talent. Walsh now has to prove that he's more than just highlight moments, that he can deliver consistent, high-quality performances that justify the hype and the big contract. And all of us get to watch this story unfold over the coming weeks and months as Walsh either validates Bracey's criticism or proves him spectacularly wrong. Either way, this is the kind of controversy that makes rugby league so compelling, and you can bet we'll be talking about this moment for years.